He's the Managing Director, India and SAARC for Enterprise Security Business of Symantec. An IT industry veteran, he has held multiple leadership roles in technology companies and has extensive experience working with large enterprise and government organizations in India. Prior to Symantec, he had led the public sector business for Cisco and had held several senior management positions at IBM. He holds Master of Business Administration and bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gaurav Agarwal.
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you for having us. I just want to show of hands. Have people since morning scared you enough? I've been listening to the two speakers before me and then some sessions in the morning as well. Everything is being attacked. The user is at risk. Why don't we go back to Stone Age, right? Where we were living in isolated environments. Life was good. We were cooking our own food and sleeping well. But we can't do that. We, Symantec as a company, wake up every morning wanting to protect people like the consumers, businesses, governments, and that's what we do. That's what we sleep at night with, that's what we wake up every morning with. And the previous speaker really helped me make my pitch a lot easier, because every time I normally meet a defense officer, his first reaction is, we live in an isolated environment, we have air gap, so nothing can touch us, right? But there were enough examples on how an HVAC system could impact the biggest retailer, identities could get exposed, and how many of you have, just a show of hands, Wi-Fi routers at home? Wi-Fi routers at home, getting Wi-Fi at home. When was the last time you checked the password on that? Admin 123 set up by a service provider, didn't change it, right? So we gave the keys to our home, to the Wi-Fi provider of our home, never changing it. And that's the reality of how we operate. I'm going to spend my next 20 minutes talking about what Symantec does, give you some examples of why people like us get fooled, right? Why is it so easy for somebody like us to, you have heard the word phishing mail since morning. I'll try and show you an example of what a phishing mail looks like and why somebody like me as well can get fooled into clicking it and therefore getting a malware injected on my system. From our perspective, I don't want to spend too much time on these numbers, and some of these numbers you've seen since morning. But because the world is getting more connected, it's getting more digital, whether you look at mobile as a computing device, for example, my CEO goes on stage, everywhere he goes and says, I haven't opened my laptop for the last 20 days. I'm able to conduct running a $5 billion company globally only through my mobile. Whether you look at IoT, which is, whether you talk about drones, whether you talk about how our plants are run, the attack surface has expanded so significantly that these numbers will only keep growing, and there is no surprise. We can come up with these charts every year to scare you and tell you that, this is a reality. It's not going to go away. What does Symantec do and why we get to see this? We operate the world's largest civilian threat network. We've got something like 9 trillion telemetry points across the globe that we see this threat world from, and we get data and we analyze that. We see something like 2 billion emails a day, right? So when you talk about phishing, we are seeing what those mails are coming from and how are they impacting the consumer. We protect 175 million endpoints across the globe, and therefore we see the telemetry that comes on them in what's making them work good or badly. We see web traffic in a manner which is like, for example, we see 1.1 billion of web requests every day in terms of saying what's happening and are they going to a right website or are they going to a wrong website, and how is the website reacting to the same. And this is the example I was talking about. The gentleman on the chart here is somebody who was, along with Mr. Bill Clinton, he was running the campaign for Hillary, and a very respected guy, a very knowledgeable person. And this is the email he gets. It comes from Google. Everybody trusts Google because it's a fairly big brand. It comes like this. It has his first name. It says somebody has your password it says somebody from Ukraine is trying to do this, and why don't you click on this to change your password? Now when somebody like any of us sees this kind of an email, you think it's genuine, right? It looks genuine, it is addressed to you as a name, and it has the right branding, it doesn't have any wrong English, and when you click it, it takes you to a when you click this button, it takes you to a sign which again shows myaccount.google. What it doesn't, and therefore then you don't read the rest of it, which may not be true. And when you click on it, it takes you to this kind of a page, which again looks like a very genuine Google page where it asks you to submit your user ID and password. And once you have done that, the guy who had done this knows your user ID and password. It's done. And you may, for all practical reasons, may be using that password across 10 different applications. And therefore, even if you change this one, he still has your password for 10 applications, and your identity is breached. So this is a very common example. And for example, in Symantec, what we keep doing is testing our own people by sending emails like this. For example, just 2 weeks back, I had an email like this in my email, and I immediately sent an email to my threat guy saying, hey, this email's come. So he just sent me a wink saying, okay, you passed our phishing test. So basically, the reality of this is that this is real, and this is happening on a daily basis, and you cannot blame the user for not clicking, because he will be fooled into doing something like this. All of us use mobile, right? And I don't know, for example, in defense, how much do you use it for real business? But I'll give you a personal example. My father is in public sector in India, and he thinks my English is better than him. He thinks that I respond to a critical paper, I can help him edit it. And because he's in a different city, he would just arbitrarily send me something saying, hey son, can you look at this? Because he trusts me. And then I have to keep reminding him, you cannot do this. You cannot be sending me this to edit, right? But that's, and he would send me a text, he would send me, and for example, in my previous role, we were doing some mission critical projects for the government, and the best way for the government to track those projects were to create mini WhatsApp groups. And we just heard, what's happening from a privacy perspective on WhatsApp as well. But that's the reality of how you really conduct your day-to-day job, and mobile again has become a big vector. And do you really think your mobile is secure? The answer is no. I was with a big public sector bank CEO, and he did not know that accessing public Wi-Fi is perhaps the biggest risk that he can do to his confidential information on the mobile. So, because we were all wanting to be saving money for our companies, we would look for open Wi-Fi's, connect to that first, and try and access to information. But the risks that it exposes our organization to is significant. And look at this, because of that, the number of variants that have gone up from a mobile variant perspective have gone up, and once you have access to your mobile, you can again get to your personal identity because you will be using your apps on your mobile, and if the guy can capture a user ID and password from your mobile when you access to your app, then again he's got keys to your kingdom, right? We block 25,000 malicious mobile applications literally each day, and they're on third-party app stores, and kids will be downloading them for games, you will be downloading them from some business use. We talked about Internet of Things. When in 2004, the PC was put on the internet without any security software, it got hacked in 4 minutes. You put a PC without any protection, it got hacked in 4 minutes. What Symantec did was put an IoT device in 2016 without any security on it, it got hacked in 2 minutes. And that's the reality of it. If there is something that is unprotected, it'll get hacked, and that's why this space has seen in last 1 year a 600% increase in attacks. And the main attack vectors are, as I said, admin 123 passwords, misconfigurations, and no capability to really control the environment in which you can monitor them and control them. My previous speaker spoke about the incident in Singapore, so I won't mention that again. But this is just a sample, and you can pick up the biggest brands in the world, right? Sony got impacted, Target, Merck, the biggest shipping company. And this is very real, and this is very targeted, very focused, and therefore difficult to contain. You have alarms going off, airports shutting down for some time, and lives depend on this. And therefore, taking this seriously is important. So let me sum this up in a way where I can tell you how do we try and solve this. So the attack surface has expanded dramatically. From a old environment where you had only people going to a certain place to work, and that was the only access to information or systems. That surface is expanded significantly. You have complex environments, you have advanced adversaries. You don't know whether he may be a student sitting in Russia or Ukraine or a nation state, but the adversary may be anywhere. And the impact is broad-based. It is not contained to a single PC. It can expand from where it is. And what this needs is a comprehensive look at cybersecurity and the way to look at it. The way we see this at Symantec is there are 4 critical endpoints in an IT environment that matter. One is the endpoint that you use, which is your mobile or your laptop or your PC, right? Or the data center that the army has or the forces has where your applications are run, whether it's your email application, whether it's your payroll application, whether it is your HR, the data center which controls your application environment. Proxy is more for businesses, but it is the gateway to your internet. This is where you access your internet from and for. And this is also a connection for your email because email goes via the internet. Third is email, right? Because as we said, email is the #1 phishing actor in the world. So how do you control and protect the email environment? And fourth are cloud apps. By cloud apps, I mean everything that you connect on an app in a cloud, which is not in your data center. It can be a Facebook, it can be a SFDC, it can be a LinkedIn for your personal profiles, it can be a Box, it can be a Twitter, but all the cloud apps that matter. And typically, if you look at an organization, what they have done is they have implemented solutions on point products from various vendors in these four verticals. And then what your chief security officer tries and does is, he tries and creates some integration between them to figure out how he can figure out what's happening on endpoint versus my network versus my email, and can I block that, and therefore figure out if I'm under attack. And that effort is best effort based because skills are limited, it's difficult, and you have different technologies. What Symantec is doing is trying to create a fabric where not only we do this for our capability across these 4 verticals, but we also do it across the industry. Therefore, if you have technologies that exist in different verticals, they should talk to each other so that the chief security officer can really get intelligence that matters, and he can take action based on that. And this, we call this as an integrated cyber defense exchange platform. This is something that we started working on. It's not a charged product. We started working on just to increase the efficiency of the industry last year, and basically making it possible for the threat actor to be figured out and acted upon, because you could see threat from multiple angles versus only one vector perspective. And then, attacks, because of their nature and domain, can be multiple, and it's jargon like, you've heard advanced threat protection. Earlier you were saying something like antivirus protection, now you hear advanced threat protection, because things that you trust, for example, Microsoft Office that you use for writing your applications, the Excel files that you use for making spreadsheets, if they themselves carry macros which may have malware, a traditional antivirus does not detect that because he thinks the Microsoft Office is a trusted application. And he will not trust the document, right? So you need capability to do that across across the data center, across email, across network. You will need analytics. Say, for example, if something really bad was to happen, what was the extent of the breach, right? In terms of who all were impacted, what do you need to remedy? For example, if you were saying that I got impacted, it's very important to say what was the extent of the impact. And for that, analytics is important, because you can't go blind and say, I was impacted, but I don't know what all segments got impacted, what all applications got impacted, and who all are affected. And the web has become dark. So for example, we heard about the last example. If you look at Facebook, if you look at Google, they're basically ad delivery mechanisms, right? That's their business model. They are ad delivery mechanisms, and these ads are encrypted, and so therefore you need mechanisms to figure out if there is encrypted traffic which has malware to be inspected and therefore acted on. As I said, we work with partners across the industry to create a platform which is secure and can help do this. Just a little, I'll rush through this, but the endpoint is evolving, right? All of you would have heard about an antivirus which you would have installed on your machines as you were students or in your college or in your organizations. But that's a prevention technology, and that's only one bit of the endpoint. So one is the mobile is also a modern endpoint. That needs to be protected. Then today there is technology available which you can insert deception in your endpoint. By deception I mean there will be traps for an attacker that if he comes on the endpoint, the trap will make him believe that he's captured the endpoint, but it will give a signal that this was a trap that got triggered off, and therefore this endpoint needs to be separated and the trapper needs to be tracked. Doing deception technologies and stuff like that, Symantec has been able to actually catch 150 criminals who have been arrested globally because of our capability around that space. Again, we have capability about things running in castles and jails. For example, I give you this example of what you understand and what you trust. You run it in a castle. What you don't know, if somebody deploys and uses, run it in a jail till the time you trust. Therefore, a jail, he cannot use the system resources for things that he's not supposed to use, and the castle is run in a way where it cannot get exposed to something which is rogue coming from outside. We have public Wi-Fi. How do you make sure that your identity is protected? And so it's time to relook at whether it's your data center, whether it's your endpoint, whether it's your mobile, and they can be protected. Today there's technology available from most vendors that can help you protect that, and therefore be a little more secure about what you heard through the day, saying all is bad and everything will be attacked. So there's capability to do that. I talked about email as being one of the biggest attack vectors, right? So this is a technology. We bought this company from a company in Israel. We bought this company last year. What this does on web and email is that it just idiot-proofs the user. For example, if there is anything on that email which is risky, when you click on that email, what will be exposed to you is only a safe content. Whatever is unsafe will get blocked out, will not get passed on to the user, whether you are browsing the web or whether you have email. Again, great technology, just 2 years old, but can make users from an email and a web idiot-proof when they go to bad websites or when they see an email which they can't figure out is good or bad. We talked about data, and for military as well, data is the new oil. For example, your confidential design documents, your strategies, your papers, etc. And with things like the example I gave, people sharing them on WhatsApp, taking pictures and sharing them on WhatsApp, right? You may have a confidential presentation, but you can take 10 pictures on a phone and then share it if you have an access to the phone. So how do you protect data across your perimeter? You have great technologies available again to do that, right? Whether it's an insider who creates it, you can encrypt it so that in a manner that, even if it goes out, it's useless because unless it is unencrypted, it cannot be used and it will get destroyed and therefore is of no value. I talked about the example of this Google thing that I showed that can be prevented by a multi-factor authentication. And again, a multi-factor authentication can again be used to protect data in a manner which makes sense and protects it. Again, great capability exists to make sure that the organizations and the users protect data and are preventing any leakage around that. The last chart here, if you look at analytics, this is more on what happened post-event and therefore figuring out what really went wrong in my network. So depending on what network you had and how the traffic went, when you had a breach, you had a full data capture of the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to figure out where did movement happen, how did it happen. It's like a video recorder camera on your network to really figure out who was the root cause and how do I prevent that from taking. Last, the previous speaker spoke about it as well. Cyber skills are truly limited today, right? It takes time to build it. It's not easy for an organization to build it overnight. Detection takes too long, response time is too slow, and flexibility is too critical. Again, my recommendation would be partner with people who can give you services around that space, which can help you before the attack, during an attack, and after the attack. For example, Symantec's got a SOC in Chennai. It's our world's largest SOC with 200 people, which can really look at an incident, give you advice, act on it, and tell you what's wrong, how to remediate, and what to do post it. And this is something that the industry needs to partner better together with people like us to take use of the technology that we have to be a lot more protected. Last chart, Symantec at a glance, and I said some of these numbers. We are the largest in this space. We see 9 trillion telemetry points give us data every day. We have SOCs that tell us what's really happening. 175 million endpoints. We have 3,500 users who wake up every morning, company-wide, only researching and doing engineering on technology. We have 2,100 patents in this space, and we serve, including military, some 350,000 plus customers globally. So happy to partner with you in any capacity, in whatever sense, to help you in your journey of security. And thank you for having us here again.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal, for